So, Mitch, I do have a couple more things to ask you, and then we'll go to the YouTube chat and see what the folks have to say at home. I'm curious your thought on the playoff roster. Is this team going to carry six outfielders into the playoffs? Like, are we going to see JBJ, Zimmer, and Tapia all on this bench? And to further to that question, any word on Lourdes?
Yeah, it sounds like so he's going to join them in Tampa. I think like if this was like game 162 and it means something, he would be back after the minimum. Like he's been kind of battling these lower body issues,
Yeah,
these cramps and these hamstring things all year. And he's had a really solid year, especially
he
at the
really
plate. But I
has.
think we have just so many outfielders on our roster right now. Go on the IL, get right, come back for the playoffs, Lourdes. I think he'll come back probably whether or not it be right after or right for this series or next series, travel back with the team. I think he'll be back soon. This was
Okay.
just a great opportunity to get him off his feet and try to deal with these things and kind of have them done with before the meaningful games. In terms of the playoff roster, I would expect all those guys are on the roster because like
Yeah.
it's going to come down to are you rostering your eighth reliever, like your long reliever who's not going to pitch in meaningful innings? Or are you going to roster a guy who can steal you a base, a guy who can snag a ball in the ninth inning defensively? And I think
Yusei
if you're pitching,
Kikuchi not on our playoff roster, right?
I think there's a chance he is just because like you need one guy. Like if you're losing a game 100-0, you just need a guy you can throw in there, and so
Right.
you have
Go out
room
there
for
with a gas
one.
can and burn it down.
But you don't have like I don't think Mitch White's going to be on the playoff roster. I don't
Interesting.
think like no offense to Foster Griffin, we haven't seen much from him, but like a
Yeah.
guy like that's probably not going to be on the playoff roster. So you don't need to carry just a ton of relievers to log innings.
They
You just
probably
need your
don't go with
dudes.
three catchers either, eh?
Yeah, I doubt Moreno is on the roster, but that's I think honestly that's more interesting than the outfielders because like there's a case to be made where like if you're but I like because Kirk's probably like your first game. If it's like Gosman pitching, you're probably catching Jansen and DHing Kirk. Like that's probably the
Mm-hmm.
best team you can make. And then so then you're going into a playoff game with no catcher on your bench. And I think that's an interesting equation. I'm not sure what they'll do there, but yeah, I expect them to load up a big bench for John Schneider to use and just kind of roster the dudes that are going to pitch meaningful innings out of the pen.
Mitch, thank you so much for your generosity with your time. We always love having you on here, man. It's always fun chatting ball with you. Adam, take it away, bud, and let's see what the folks at home have to say.
All right. First one, just about you listed all the outfielders we have and the abundance going on there. Teoscar, is he gone next year?
I think if there's a regular dude from the lineup traded this off season, Teoscar just makes a lot of sense. Like he's going into a walk year. He is like from an at the plate perspective, maybe a little redundant in this lineup. He's got big power. He's also like corner outfielders are arguably the most replaceable guys. Like we talk about how many outfielders they have on the roster right now. So I
It's got to
think
be
if
the
you're
easiest
trading
place for us to get a left-handed bat, too, right?
exactly, yeah, it kind of you can talk yourself into okay, if we trade Teoscar for pitching, we can backfill with a left-handed bat. We've now made ourselves more versatile in the lineup and we've addressed a hole. I think it's just he's the easiest guy to talk yourself into making like kind of a we trade from the MLB team but get better move.
Do you think the way this roster is constructed will be changed this offseason? Or do you think we are going to see some major changes? Or do you think this team, I guess it depends on how the playoffs go?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they're probably less so now than maybe like 3 months ago. I think they probably felt like they were going to have to make big moves, but like they're going to win 93, 94 games. Everything people thought this team was going to be, despite the ups and downs, is probably what it's going to end up being.
Yeah.
So I think you probably don't need to, but like Gurriel and Hernandez are both going to have 1 year left on their deals this offseason. So if that's not you can't really justify taking both those guys to free agency and having one kind of regular outfielder on your roster. So I think it's maybe not about the 2023 roster that moves will be made this offseason as much as how do we keep this sustained contender and does that mean trading a corner outfielder? And I think the answer is probably yes.
Has Schneider justified returning next year?
barring 14 games left, barring like an 0-14 and a miss the playoffs, I think I think he's been able to kind of navigate these ups and downs really well from just a pure game management perspective. I really like what he's done. Obviously, a lot more is going into that than just John Schneider pulling the strings, but everything I've talked to with players, they rave about him. They like him. They're willing to play for him. And I think like he's kind of been their guy. Like whether or not that was going to be in a long-term manager role or a long-term bench coach role, they like him leading this clubhouse in one way or another. And if you don't promote him to manager, you're probably not going to bump him back down to bench coach. I don't think a guy like that would take that move. He would. You might have to fire him if you're not promoting him or extending him to a long-term extension. So I would expect he's back as the manager next year.
So knock on wood, and hopefully this is not a scenario we're looking at, but if the Jays get swept in the wild card, is John Schneider still on the hot seat?
No, I don't think so. Like, I don't think this organization, but like, unless he makes like huge gaffes in the two games and the team, like we get a bunch of anonymous quotes and George Springer is at the mic saying like, we hated those decisions after the game. Like he would truly have to lose the clubhouse to warrant that, because I don't think this front office group makes decisions like that. I don't think they think, hey, was winning these two games enough? It's how do we feel about our overall product? How do we feel about the direction of the team? Did we think that what he was doing made our team better? If the answers to that are yes, then I think he'll be back, regardless of the outcome of two games in the wild card.
All right. Two from the live chat that I want to get to before we let you go. Again, thank you so much for the generosity with your time. But Charles K says, I think we will sign Vladdy regardless, but at what point does the front office consider trading Bichette if he decides to treat signing an extension with the same value of being on the open market?
Yeah, I don't know if you're trading Bo Bichette. Like, I think unless he tells you he is not going to sign with you, I don't think it's worth it until that last year, especially if you're in a competitive window. Like, sure, if things go south, if George Springer gets real old real quick, if this rotation ages out, and when 2 years before Bo hits free agency, he's like the only good player on the roster, him and Vlad, then maybe you think about trading those guys, entering a rebuild, building your rebuild around the prospects you get for them. But if you're trying to win a World Series, I think you ride the Vlad and Bo arbs out. Just go right until the end, see what happens, try to extend them. Obviously, you try to extend them before that happens, but if you're trying to win a World Series, Bo Bichette helps you do that. So I think if he's right there trying to hit the market and you're still winning 93 games, you ride it out, try to win a World Series with him.
You push it right to free agency. You let him test free agency and hope you can compete.
Like if you're like, let's say a projected 94 win team the year before he hits free agency, you trading Bo is like almost giving up on that season. Like you then become a borderline playoff team, probably not going to win the World Series. So, and then what? You're rebuilding and trying to get back to that 94 win team. I think you might as well take advantage of that one shot, that one last shot. Hopefully they for their sake, hopefully they've succeeded before that happens. But if that's their final shot, I think it would make sense to take it over trying to do a quick rebuild.
You're probably not wrong. You're probably not wrong in that assessment that trading Bo equates to writing the season off. And I think that's an interesting way of, recalibrating the quality of player that Bo Bichette is, because it is really easy to get down on him and the errors and when he's not hitting right. But yeah, getting rid of him would be tantamount to starting over, essentially.
Yeah. Unless unless Carlos Correa is in free agency or the next Carlos Correa, and you can trade Bo, get those prospects, and sign someone with money. Right. Like it would have to be a very unique circumstance for that not to be basically giving up.
Very good.
Like getting Shohei Ohtani type of stuff.
Sure.
Sure.
All right. Next one then comes in from Simon in the chat. Says, does Mitch think we'll see Ricky Tiedemann next year?
Yeah, I think last time I was on here, we were talking about this. It is interesting because he's been shut down for the year. He got not because of an injury, just because he worked so much this year and it's really his first season. But he's going to start next year. Like he's going to have an invite to big league spring training. I'll tell you that right now. Like he's going to be pitching. He's going to be the story of spring training, like Moreno was this year. And it's going to be a when, not an if. Like at minimum, he's starting in Double-A. If he succeeds, he can easily work his way up to Triple-A, and then we're looking like at a guy who, as I said earlier, if someone goes down, like why would you call up the depth guy if Ricky Tiedemann's pitching well in Triple-A? Like you would take the upside with that, and I think like he's taken everything they've thrown at him and he's succeeded. There's no expectation that that's going to stop next year. So if he, like, you look at what they did with Alek Manoah, they gave him that invite to big league spring training. He carved up those Yankees teams, and then he was in the big leagues like 6 weeks later. I don't know if the same thing's going to happen with Tiedemann, just because they probably won't have the same like drastic need for a starter like they had when they called up Manoah. But yeah, I would be poor performance or injury are the only things that I think will prevent Ricky Tiedemann from getting to the big leagues next year, not some like timeline that the Blue Jays have on him.
It's so wild to look at their pitching prospects and see age 20 next to Ricky Tiedemann and Sam Roberts. Like, these are young guys.
Yeah, like let's say Tiedemann cracks in next year. He plays out his 7 years and like everything goes right. He's like the Alek Manoah style from the left hand. He's just carving guys up in the Cy Young conversation. He's going to hit free agency as like a 27-year-old. And like, that's when like you're making generational money if everything's going right for you there.
Very nice. Okay. Just very quickly before we let you go then, Aaron Judge contract next year. Do the Yankees keep him? How much does he get? Does it start with a 2, a 3, a 4? What are we talking about?
I think it starts with a 3, I would guess. I think it's probably like 8 or 9 years, 300 mil. It would be my guess. Could be higher. I think in my heart of hearts, I know he's probably going back to the Yankees, but the team I've been eyeing this entire time is the Giants. I think he's a Bay Area guy. They could really use that injection of a huge bat. Their payroll is like very, very small right now, and they're a team that can spend big. I think if he goes to free agency and there's 2 teams bidding for him at the end, it'll be the Giants and the Yankees.
He could take down Maris this year, and he could take down Barry Bonds next year, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There we go.
Storyline.
All right. Scott, anything else you want to get to here?
No, that's everything.
Wrap it up.
This was
All
great, Mitch. Always love having you on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.